Welcome back, everybody, to What Do You Know with Nick and Devin. I am Devin.
And I'm Nick.
Amazing.
So jazzed today.
Oh. Coffee kicked in. Thank you, Clancy.
Thank you, Clancy's.
Support local business.
Hashtag
local
shop
business.
local.
You know, especially for the holiday season, shop local.
Yeah.
Support the mom and pops.
Okay, but here's I am all about shopping local. I love a small business. Can't always find what I want.
Oh, okay.
And the other thing is, there's not, because I hate a strip mall, right? That's just atrocious to look at.
Yeah,
and malls. But, mom and pop shops are kind of, strung throughout a city.
Yeah.
And so, then I have to, travel to this one and then travel to this one. And then I'm, looking up where I should go. And I'm I just want to be able to, walk down a downtown strip. You know what I mean? Small town, it just seems so much easier.
Right. This is mom and pop row.
Right. Exactly. Main Street USA has everything I need. And that's not the case. Because I can think of by our place, there's probably 2, maybe 3 shops I could pop into. And I'm okay. Everything else is Banana Republic Factory.
Right. Yeah. So you'd rather just have one central location for all the...
Well, to be able to support local business, you know what I mean? I think I'm also just a really bad shopper.
Well, I hate shopping, so I don't want to do any of it.
I always do the day before, or the day of. If it's someone's birthday or even Christmas, to be honest, I'll run to the store, before we go.
Here's your pack of Pokemon cards I got standing in line while filling up my gas tank. Here you go.
Tell me you wouldn't want a pack of Pokemon cards.
Well, yeah. Right?
It's just that inspiration strikes me at the last minute, okay?
Yeah, that's called procrastination. You can't bullshit a bullshitter.
I just don't know it until I see it,
Okay. Sure thing. But I wanted to ask you a quick question that's completely unrelated to everything we've been talking about.
I love it.
But related to my topic about later.
Thank God.
Yeah. I would love to ask, I wanted to know what it would take for you to travel in space, to and in space.
Oh, to muster up the courage to do it, or what would have to be in place for me to be able to say, yes, I want to do that?
Both, but mostly what would have to be in place? Would it have to be we've been doing it for years and years, where it's the risk has come down as low as flying a plane? Or is it I would do it tomorrow if I had the chance?
Risk. Because we just had the second SpaceX launch the other day, and they were we lost contact after 8 minutes. And I'm yeah, no, I'm good. You know what I mean? And even still, NASA sending things up, we're just not quite there yet. When we start to build things on the moon, then maybe I'll be sure. And we find a way to have a stasis traveling into space. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I need a little more time. I need a reduction in risk.
Yeah, because we've talked about various ways of traveling through space.
Yes.
When I talked about when I duped you with the Mass Effect episode.
The bit.
It was a great one. Where some options were having, you said, a stasis where you kind of have a sleep.
Yeah.
To be able to travel that many light years, but time still goes on.
Right.
Is that something you would want to do?
That kind of freaks me out.
Yeah.
Because I'm because a lot of those, as far as we know, is very back in the womb sort of thing. You're kind of compressed and I don't know, that scares me.
Yeah.
I would rather, once we get to the point of warp drive, then I'm all in. Definitely in our lifetime.
Yeah, right. I know I also talked about the Expanse series a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And the way that they do it is that they don't travel faster than the speed of light, but they travel close to it.
Okay.
And they have these special, they call them crash couches, which might be a real term.
Okay.
Where it's essentially an extra cushioned chair that helps support your body when it receives all those G's from traveling super fast.
Okay, yeah.
And they also inject you with special sauce to
is that what they call it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Special sauce so that your body doesn't pass out It helps maintain like your nausea and mostly keeps you alert because like if for those of you who don't know, when your body if you're not trained and you experience all those G's, you're just gonna pass the fuck out.
And you're like all those people who like ride the slingshot thing.
Exactly.
And they're like, oh.
Yeah, and your face gets all fucked up. And it's not great.
I think if I could try it on the ground, so like a simulator, so I understand like both like the Statius or like the G's and all of that, like then I feel more comfortable. But if they were just like, all right, we're throwing you in, I'd be like, no. Okay.
So you'd want to try go through like astronaut training?
Oh, I'd love that.
That'd be pretty cool.
Honestly, it'd be really cool to go through like the whole G-force.
I'd throw up.
Oh, it'd be so great. Just like,
Yeah. Apparently there is a flight you can take where it's like an empty cargo plane, like one of those giant cargo planes.
Yeah.
That they'll let you experience 0G. Or close to 0G. They fly up really high and then they do a parabolic flight is what they call it.
So that you feel the kind of the weightlessness. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
I would be down for that.
I don't know how much it costs. I think it's a little expensive.
A lot of money. Yeah, I would assume.
It's kind of a waste of fuel.
Also, I just imagine they're like, oh, we didn't hit it right. And you're just like hitting the ceiling, hitting the floor, hitting the ceiling, hitting the floor.
It's the pilot's first day. He's going really fast.
You're just like, what is this? 100%.
But yeah, you can experience that if you want.
And that sounds great. See, oh yeah, I've been burning a hole in my pocket. I am all about like the adrenaline and like that sort of thing. Totally. I'd be down for it.
Yeah. But you wouldn't travel to space?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not until like maybe astronaut training.
Sure.
Then we'll go from there.
It's funny to see the videos of astronauts who spend a lot of time in space come back down to Earth experiencing full gravity, and they'll like they're holding a can of Coke or something like that, and like they'll just let go of it because they're used to it just floating next to them,
right,
and being okay. Then it's like, oh shit, there it goes.
My Coke's gone. This is the 8th Coke today.
Right.
Amazing. I also love when people loved the astronaut pens. Like, it writes upside down. I'm just like, okay.
Just get a pencil.
Right. Jesus Christ.
It's like the one thing the Russians got right.
Didn't they spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars on making a pen that wrote upside down?
Yeah, and then the Russian cosmonauts were like, we're using pencils up there, bro.
And they're like, oh. Oops. Well, mine's more permanent.
Right.
Yeah. Ridiculous. All right, what else you got for me?
Well, I'm going to jump into the topics.
Okay.
Space.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because that was my one and only question. My second and only question is, what do you know about the Artemis program?
Oh, I feel... Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you touch on this during SETI or a different episode?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'll have to go back and listen.
You folks, let us know. That sounds really familiar. That's why I asked. You might have just like mentioned it.
Yeah.
But nothing. So I know who Artemis is. That's all I got.
Great. Well, the Artemis program is the new mission that NASA is running for lunar exploration.
Oh.
Is like the brief overview.
So we went from Apollo to Artemis.
Yeah.
Got it.
So
Okay.
It's been 51 years since we've had a human on the moon.
Crazy.
Which is wild. The Apollo 17 mission was launched on December 7th, 1972, and returned to Earth on December 19th. And since the Apollo 18 mission was canceled, the 17th mission became the 11th and final mission of the Apollo program, which was the last time we were on the moon.
Okay.
This was also the 6th and most recent time humans landed on the moon or traveled beyond low orbit.
Got it.
Orbit. Hi, Bert. And so I know Neil and Buzz are the most famous ones because they were, the first group on there. But you always kind of forget that we continued to send people to the moon. It wasn't just this one group that had to be on the moon. And then, of course, Apollo 13 became famous because of Tom Hanks.
Well,
the only reason why it's
classic.
Great movie, by the way.
Tom Hanks and what's his name?
Isn't Kevin Bacon in there?
Sure. And what's his name? What the fuck? From Die Hard. Oh my god, why is everyone screaming as we are paused? Oh my god, what's his name?
Are you thinking of Armageddon?
Bruce Willis. Am I thinking of Armageddon?
Yeah, you're thinking of Armageddon.
With Liv Tyler as well? Yeah. Never mind. I take everything I said back.
Because Apollo 13 is Tom Hanks, Bill Paxton, Ed Harris, Kevin Bacon. Gary Sinise is in there, of course.
Did they come out around the same time?
Apollo 13 was in 1995.
Okay.
Oh, that's pretty old.
And Armageddon was in
98.
Okay, so relatively within our young minds.
I guess.
Relatively close. It's all in the 90s. I'm sorry, do you separate your years in the 90s when you reflect back?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't just like encompass it into the 90s?
Oh, it depends on how. If I'm being specific, then yes. Like when a movie comes out.
Okay, you're better than me, okay?
I'm sorry, the 90s were huge for technology.
They were. Anyway. Gary Sinise.
Gary Sinise. Like I said, it was 50 years since we've landed someone on the moon.
Correct.
But here comes the Artemis mission, and I'm actually going to play a little clip for you.
And here we go.
Those are sparklers.
Initiate. 7, 6,
So it's water.
5. 4-stage engine start. 3, 2, 1. Boosters in ignition. And liftoff of Artemis 1. We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
There it goes. This is so fucking cool, though.
What was it, the water to make sure nothing got on fire?
Yeah,
Okay.
cool all the systems down, make sure
There's no explosions.
there's no fire.
Fair.
Other than the one we want to boost the rocket out.
Dude, that commentator was so jazzed.
Good control on the roll from teams in Mission Control Houston. All good calls so far. Now 30 seconds into the flight of Artemis 1. First milestone will be for the vehicle to pass through max Q in about 1 minute and 9 seconds into launch. This is the greatest period of atmospheric force on the rocket.
It's trying to escape orbit in Earth's atmosphere at this moment. It's still climbing and climbing. And eventually we'll see.
607 miles per hour?
Yeah,
Damn.
it's got to go fast.
Gotta go fast.
We'll eventually be seeing part of the rockets break away. And then another booster will go. I'm going to exit out of this. The video is going to keep playing in the background.
Okay. Got it.
Now 1 minute, 21 seconds into the flight, traveling at 1,420 miles per hour.
And it even goes faster.
That's nuts. That's so cool.
And so that was the Artemis 1 launching to start the Artemis program. And that launched on November 16th, 2022. So at the time of recording, it's just after the 1-year anniversary. But by the time we listen to it, it'll be a month and a year and some days.
I love it.
But Artemis 1 launched at November 16th, 2022 at 12:47 a.m. CST from the Kennedy Space Center down in Florida.
Weird that they did it like after midnight.
So...
Oh, no. You said PM or AM?
AM.
AM, okay.
Yeah. So with space launches, you have to have a very small window of time in order to hit your target because of where the Earth is positioned and then wherever your target is positioned.
Okay.
There's a lot of math and science involved in figuring out when you can launch and what time you'll need to be launching at. You have a very small window. To the point where I'm not too sure how many times Artemis 1 was delayed, but this isn't the first attempt at launching Artemis 1. I think it was delayed 2 or 3 times before where something just wasn't right, where they had to shut down the launch and then try again like a month or so later.
Okay.
Crazy town.
That's nuts. It sounds like an anxiety-driven like math problem. If the Earth orbits at X speed,
right. Well, thankfully, like our technology is much better than it was for the Apollo mission.
Fair.
Where we have computers that can help with the trajectory of things. Yeah. Where for the Apollo missions, I know there's a really famous story and movie out now about a team with what was it, like 4 or so black women who like did all the math and like helped out the Apollo missions and stuff like that, but like stacks and stacks of paper to try to figure out all this math. It's like, fuck.
Insane. Absolutely insane. That movie is Hidden Figures.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Artemis 1, like I said, launched November 16th. It was an uncrewed moon orbiting mission. So there weren't any people on this.
Okay.
It was essentially a test flight.
Okay.
Kicking off the whole program.
Okay.
This flight marked NASA's return to lunar exploration on the 50th anniversary of the Apollo program. So 50 years after Apollo ended, we got Artemis going.
Okay.
And the main objective of Artemis 1 was to test, like I said prior, the Orion spacecraft, and specifically its heat shield. So the Orion is like this little cap on top of the rocket that will hold the crew while they're blasting off. And the idea is that it's supposed to be partially reusable. And it's essentially an updated version of the Apollo Command and Service Module, or CSM.
Okay.
But this one is bigger, so they have a little bit more elbow room.
Okay.
Updated thermal protection system, which is great for re-entry.
We love it.
And, of course, updated technology, because, we're not in the 70s anymore.
Thank you.
And what's great about the Orion is that it's capable of supporting up to 21 days of active crew time.
Okay.
And 6 months of static spacecraft life while attached to another module. So if the Orion is the only space that the crew is occupying, is the word I wanted to look for.
Got it.
Found it on the wall. If the Orion is the only module that the crew is occupying, they can last up to 21 days in there. And then if the Orion is attached to a different craft, a different space station or whatever, it can last up to 6 months. Now, by getting life support from a different system.
Got it. So 21 days just based on what's able to be housed
correct
on Orion to supply life sustaining.
To support, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The idea is that this CSM Orion can be upgraded as new tech becomes available. So they'll be able to work on it and keep it functioning for decades.
Got it.
Hopefully.
Don't you think we'll ever get to a point where they can just, like, it can be just like because my big thing there, I feel like, is like oxygen, right? So like maintaining a level of oxygen. But don't we have things that can like turn carbon into like what we emit? Can it just be like recycled into? The
problem is usually that technology is very heavy at this point. And sending anything out of low orbit, is or anything up in the air rather is a weight gain.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, that makes sense.
So on Artemis 1's way to the moon, 10 CubeSats were deployed, and a CubeSat is something that I learned is a tiny, inexpensive cube of technology designed to run experiments while in space. So there's a really cool graphic on NASA's website of like the trajectory of Artemis 1 and what it did on its journey.
Okay.
And once it got out of low orbit, it dropped like 5 or what was it? It was like 6 CubeSats right away, and then a little bit later it dropped 3 more, and then once it got around the moon it dropped 1. So that was all 10.
Okay.
And some of the experiments that they're running in space were seeing the effects of to detect, measure, and compare the effects of deep space radiation on rehydrated yeast cards, seeing how that can affect organic life that we have here on Earth.
Oh, okay, sure.
So the During its flight, the Orion completed 2 flybys of the moon and made its way back to Earth. And a flyby and an orbit are different.
Sure.
So an orbit is you're actually getting caught within the the celestial body's gravity.
Okay.
And going around and slowly kind of being pulled into the core down to the surface.
Yeah.
A flyby is you're literally just kind of flying
Skating by.
just
Yeah.
going around and coming back.
And that did 2 flybys.
2 flybys.
Got it. So what was the length of, how long does it take to fly by the moon?
To like go around the moon?
Yeah.
I'm not too sure off the top of my head. The entire mission lasted 25 days, 10 hours, and 53 minutes.
Okay.
And that includes the... I know everyone's wondering, your next question is, how long does it take to get to the moon?
Well, duh.
It takes approximately 3 days. That was at the end of my notes, so I had to scroll a little bit. But so it takes 3 days.
So what would that be? About 9 days to get around the moon? 18 plus 6 would be about 24.
Yeah.
Okay.
Simple head math. Would assume yes.
Okay. Someone from NASA is eventually going to listen and be like,
These
actually?
fucking idiots.
Yeah.
So the heat shield successfully protected the Orion, which is phenomenal because that was a big point of the Artemis 1 mission. And the module splashed down in the Pacific Ocean on December 11th, 2022.
Nice.
So that was, like I said, it was the anniversary of the Artemis 1.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just the beginning of the Artemis program. But let's go back to the very beginning. On May 14th, 2019, when NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine announced Artemis as the official name for this new program. For a while, NASA was like, hey, let's go back to the moon. Let's go back to the moon. Come on.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of funding issues going on between multiple different presidencies where, like, with George W., we shut down the shuttle program. And Obama, like, he gave some money, different money, like he shut down the shuttle program and gave different money to NASA. Obama, like, gave funds, but was like, hey, we can't really go to space right now.
Sure.
Trump weirdly was like, yeah, let's fucking go. And then, like, of course, as
Space
we all know,
Force.
created Space Force, eye roll. And finally, Biden as well was like, yeah, let's do it. Here's a bunch more funding.
Love it.
So we get this Artemis program as named by Jim in 2019. And if you know anything about Greek mythology, you know that Artemis, that this program is named after the Greek goddess Artemis, who's the goddess of the moon, as well as the twin sister of Apollo.
Hey.
It's like they're trying to think of all these connections. And Orion, of course,
is
the guy in the sky, was a hunter, who I just learned from Allie that Artemis was like, Artemis killed Orion because Orion was like, I'm the greatest hunter in the world. And Artemis was like, bet, killed him.
Right. I'm going to hunt you.
Right. Fucking hilarious. Now he's in the sky. He's got a cool belt.
He's got a really cool.
So the main overarching mission of the Artemis program is to get humans on the moon's surface again. We want to get down there and do a bunch of science on the moon again.
Love it.
So we want to expand our research of the lunar surface, experiment with long-term habitation in space, and deliver the Lunar Gateway. Isn't that such a cool sounding thing?
What's the Lunar Gateway? All I can think of is your duped episode.
This is all real. This is all real. This is not a video game. This is all on NASA's website, I promise.
Sites sorted, sourced. Yeah.
So the Lunar Gateway is my next bullet. Don't worry. So this is the first the first planned extraterrestrial space station. So that means we're going to have a space station beyond low Earth orbit. Because right now we have the International Space Station orbiting Earth. And so we're going to take what we learned there and put it around the moon.
Right.
So it's going to be placed in lunar orbit, making it the first space station to orbit the moon, of course. And it's going to be a solar-powered communication hub, laboratory, and serve as a short-term habitation module.
Wow.
So just like we have some astronauts living in the ISS, we're going to have some folks living in the Lunar Gateway.
Okay.
And it's also going to serve as, I just get so giddy because it's so
You
sci-fi.
are, yeah.
It's so cool. It's also going to be serving as like a holding area for rovers and other robots that'll help us explore the surface of the moon.
Oh, so they can like come back to that instead of coming all the way back to Earth.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And like we can launch a rover from Earth to the Gateway, and then the Gateway can deploy the rover.
Nice.
So it'll be ideally a better landing, I believe.
Sure.
But also the communication from the rover to the Gateway will be a much stronger connection than from the rover to Earth.
Sure.
Because, we have such a delayed and kind of tough time connecting with rovers that we sent to Mars.
Yeah. Yep.
So the idea that this for this Gateway is also to help expand human presence to the moon. And then we're going to use this for Mars, and then even deeper into our solar system.
That's kind of cool.
Spooky
A
and
rover,
cool.
a rover beyond Mars.
Yeah, humans beyond Mars.
So within our lifetime, do you think we see people beyond Mars? Do you think we see people land on Mars, other than Matt Damon?
I think I will be like on my deathbed by the time we see someone on Mars.
You'll watch them take the first step and then die.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Will I be only 60 years old? I don't know.
Right.
Either way, I'm going to be on my deathbed.
You're at your midlife crisis at 30. Got it.
Just based off of, and I'll go into it later, the timing of all of these Artemis missions that are coming up, it's going to be a minute before we are even having a habitat on the moon.
Sure.
So like the whole point of this Artemis program is to learn how to live in space, learn how to live on a foreign planet, and then take what we learn there and go to Mars. And then go to other planets as we can.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So this is just a stepping stone into deeper space exploration.
A gateway, if you will.
A lunar gateway. Also, this is just going to be another little tangent that I learned, was that, so like I mentioned earlier, the shuttle program, the space shuttle program was shuttered during George W.'s administration. And I looked at the Orion and the Artemis 1. I was like, so why aren't we using those cool space planes? And the space planes were actually used really for the sole purpose of building the International Space Station. And once it was completed being built, we're not really adding on to it anymore. If we are, it's just smaller modules.
Sure.
They shuttered the program. They were like, great, we don't need these giant, super expensive, sometimes they don't work out too great space planes, space shuttles. And so like there's several out on display at different museums across the country, of course. And like they've taken some of the rockets off, the propulsion systems off to like study and reuse and stuff like that. I was like, that's why we don't have those cool, like, I don't know. I think they're cool looking, but we're just sending them up in rockets in small little space caps.
I mean, I think that's a little more cost effective.
Yeah. Well, and also like, we don't need, maybe we'll be doing space shuttles again, but like to build the Lunar Gateway, I'm not too sure. But you don't need all the equipment that comes on a space shuttle to get to the moon.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair.
So on to long-term habitation on the moon.
Okay.
So the proposed lunar base called Artemis Base Camp will hopefully be established by the end of the 2020s. So right around 2030.
Okay. That's pretty soon.
It is pretty soon. That's why it's hopeful.
Yeah.
So they're going to create this base at the near the south pole of the moon, because in that region there is a large variety of lunar gravity is one, and also surprisingly there's an abundance of water ice that is supposed to be in the lunar soils of nearby craters.
Oh.
So like they're in the basin of the crater, in like heavily shadowed areas.
Yeah.
There's supposedly water ice that we'll be able to excavate.
Interesting. We don't know for sure. Hypothetically.
Likely.
Got it.
It's on the likely side of everything.
Got it.
And then, of course, they're going to explore the exact site of the base by using robotic, unmanned,
of course,
vehicles.
Yeah.
Missions like rovers and whatnot. And at the start, the base will consist of 3 main modules. The first one being the Surface Habitat, or SH module. And this will be the initial dwelling structure for everybody there.
Okay.
And then you'll have a Lunar Terrain Vehicle module, or LTV. And that's going to be an unpressurized rover cart for astronauts to use while they're doing EVAs, going out in space.
Got it. Okay.
And this vehicle will be used for shorter distances, and will remain close to the base.
Okay.
And then we're also going to have a pressurized rover. And this is going to be, just like the name sounds, a pressurized vehicle. So that means it has atmosphere in there, allowing for longer range explorations that could last multiple days. So going further from the base, you don't have to be wearing your space suit.
Yeah.
You can just be wearing your regular NASA jumpsuit while being in this pressurized vehicle. Pretty fucking cool.
That's awesome.
So cool. And so like that will be attached to the more like dwelling structure where you'll have an airlock system go between, most likely. So ideally this base will be able to support missions as long as 2 months.
Okay.
But of course used multiple times over the next few decades. So we'll be sending folks to live on this base for 2 months at a time.
Yeah.
At least to start. And then sending him back up to the gateway and sending him home.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense.
But then like being reused once you resupply the base.
Yep.
And like I said earlier, this is all going to be a precursor to what we use on Mars.
Testing the waters.
It's so cool. So as of right now, there are 6 planned Artemis missions with 5 more proposed missions on the way.
Okay.
So we have 6 approved, not ready to go per se, but like
building out.
We're ready to go with them.
Yeah.
So as we know, Artemis 1 launched on 11/16/2022 as an uncrewed lunar orbit. The second mission is proposed for November 2024.
Okay.
And that's going to be a 4-person lunar flyby.
Ooh.
And the crew is already selected.
Nice.
So you can't go right now.
Damn it.
Artemis 3, December 2025. It's going to be a 4-person lunar orbit with a 2-person lunar landing.
Ooh. So 2 years from now, we're going to have a lunar landing.
We'll all be sitting in front of our TVs watching the landing.
We'll have a little watch party.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be at a weird time of night.
Live stream.
So then the 4th one is going to be in September 2028. That's going to be a 4-person lunar orbit, lunar landing, and delivery of the IHAB module to the Lunar Gateway.
Okay.
IHAB being an International Habitat Module, I believe is what it stands for.
Okay.
One thing I forgot to mention about the Gateway is that 4 of the International Space Station partners, of the many that helped build the space station, are also going to be working on the Lunar Gateway. So that's, of course, going to be NASA, number 1, obvi. And then we're also going to get the European Space Agency, the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, and the Canadian Space Agency.
Oh, okay. Hey, Canada.
There's going to be like some other agencies and private companies working on these technologies.
Of course.
But those are going to be the 4 big ones building the Lunar Gateway.
Got it. My question, okay.
Yeah, what's your question?
We'll get to it. Never mind.
Okay.
Come back to it.
We'll try to remember. So going back to the Artemis missions that are planned, we have Artemis 5, which will be launching September 2029. That'll be a lunar landing with the LTV. delivery of the E-Sprit refueling module, and a crewed lunar landing.
Both a cruel and crude.
And then the final planned one and approved one for Artemis 6 will be September 2030. And that'll be a lunar landing and delivery of the Gateway Airlock module.
So everything's in place.
So we have a couple lunar landings scheduled, approved, ready to go.
Yep.
And then we have Artemis 7 through 10. I'm just going to clump them all together because they're not approved yet, but they're being planned. These will last, 3 or 4, 7, 8, 9, 4 missions will be between 2031 and 2035.
Oh, quick. Back to back.
And they will just be kind of delivery of modules for Artemis Base Camp at the South Pole region.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully include, by Artemis 10, a long-term stay on the surface of the moon.
Ooh. So within 10 years, a little over 10 years, we'll have people staying on the moon.
Hopefully, if everything goes according to plan and funding doesn't run out.
We can only hope.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There are also approximately 17-ish support missions that are planned. Mm-hmm. One is currently operational to deliver other equipment essential for Artemis main missions. They aren't official Artemis 1, Artemis 3 missions,
sure,
but they'll be being sent up to send other equipment and whatnot for these missions. Very exciting.
Very cool.
So another thing that... not another thing. The main thing, aside from getting humans on the moon for this Artemis program, is the lunar research.
Okay.
So back in the Apollo program, samples of lunar soil and rocks and whatnot were brought back to Earth and were studied a crazy amount and are still being studied today, and actually wound up changing our view of the solar system as we knew it at the time. Wild. So obviously we want to study more of the moon. Yeah. And so further studies on the surface of the moon during the Artemis program will allow us to dive deeper into the mysteries of space. And what's also crazy, like I mentioned before, is that water can and most likely be found in the permanently shadowed parts of the moon. Yeah. And so that's going to be essential to our long-term habitation of the moon.
Totally.
Because obviously you need water for drinking.
Thank you.
The systems of turning water into oxygen for people to breathe.
Yeah.
Also important. But then also using it to help with rocket fuel to power missions deeper into the solar system.
I guess my question there though is it being regenerated? So like if we start tapping into this water source on the moon after X amount of time, like it doesn't have like a rain cycle. You know what I mean? So like after a bit, like that's it.
Yeah, I think the hope is that
by that point
more comets hit, more ice particles land on the moon.
Got it. Okay.
And I think it might also depend on what the soil structure of the moon is.
Sure.
That could be producing hydrogen and oxygen molecules.
Okay.
So then you could crunch it together and make water.
With your hands.
With what? Yeah. Uh-huh. You just clap a couple times.
Yeah.
Water. But I know too on the ISS right now, or they have been for a while, they're trying to grow plants as well.
Yeah.
Which will also help with their oxygen. So they won't have to burn as much water to create oxygen.
Got it. Okay.
Also, like, they recycle their pee.
Horrifying. I get it. Like, it's sterile, but...
No, it goes through, like, a cleaning system.
No, yeah.
They're not just, like, pissing in an Ice Mountain bottle that you find on the side of the road.
But how great.
Yeah. It's like a dodgeball. It's sterile.
Yeah.
I like the taste.
They go through that test during astronaut training.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So in November, continuing our conversation about water,
Mm-hmm.
in November 2024, NASA's Volatiles Investigating Polar Exploration Rover, or VIPER for short, will be delivered during a planned support mission. And so this VIPER is the first, I don't know why it wouldn't be, but it's the first lunar water hunting rover. So it'll go around the moon's surface finding other sources of water.
Very cool.
Crazy.
Also just weird that it's named Viper.
I know, right? Like I don't know if vipers are known for hunting for water.
Highly doubt it. I just
Right, like, yeah, I don't think they would want to call their rover like dowsing. That's a really hard acronym to fit in.
Yeah, that's fair. Just coming up with
Right.
Yeah.
So currently, we're gonna get into the budget a little bit.
Okay.
Very briefly. The current cost of the program in the 2021 to 2025 projection is at $53 billion. That's with a B.
That's bananas.
There it is.
Uh-huh.
But if you add in additional tech and research for this program that started in 2012, the total goes a little higher, up to just, a cool $93 billion.
Jesus. And this is for all 10 launches or everything that's been approved so far?
Everything up until 2025. So not all 10. That really only gets us to like Artemis 3.
So not even anything stationed, like our first like lunar landing is what it gets us to.
Yeah. But it's so much worth it than like all the other shit we spend money on. So
yeah, fair. Fair.
So during these missions, what's exciting about the Artemis program? That's all I had about the budget. It was just those numbers.
Thank you.
So during these missions, what's really cool about the Artemis program is that we will be finally landing the first woman, as well as the first person of color on the moon.
Very exciting.
Very exciting. And another fun fact. I just have a couple fun facts.
Thank you.
Here. Fun facts with Devin. And I don't know where to fit in the story of my notes.
We'll get there.
So, like I said earlier, if the moon is your targeted destination, it'll take about 3 years to get there. However,
3 days?
3 days to get there.
Like if you were walking.
It'll take 3 days to get there. However, NASA's New Horizons probe actually holds the fastest flight to the moon without stopping. It zoomed by the moon in only 8 hours and 35 minutes.
What?
It was en route to Pluto and to get a scan and study Pluto.
That's nuts.
And they just launched it. They slung it really fast and went zoom.
It was just a really long, taut rubber band.
Yeah. Exactly.
Is Pluto back to being a planet?
No.
Oh.
No, it's
still out?
Yeah, I think it's in its dwarf category.
Oh.
There was and I would have to look this up to verify, but there was a celestial object in the Kuiper Belt that was slightly bigger than Pluto.
Oh.
That we were considering being like, is that a planet, or is that just like a really fucking big asteroid, or is this a moon? It's very hard to tell because, for those of you who don't know, the Kuiper Belt is another asteroid field that surrounds our solar system.
Mm-hmm.
Just like there's the asteroid belt just past us, before the outer planets, there's the Kuiper Belt, which has really old, really cold, and really large objects out there. And that's kind of where Pluto hangs out, just like at the border of the Kuiper Belt.
Okay.
And so that's kind of like, is Pluto just another object of the Kuiper Belt, or is there something bigger out there that is technically our planet?
Have we found out yet? We don't know.
I don't know. I think it also depends on like the object's orbit around our sun, if it can be determined to be a planet or not.
Okay. So he's in dwarf status right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Pluto's still out. It's messed up.
I'm going to start a petition to get Pluto to be back.
I'm sure there are already a million out there.
I'm sure.
But yeah, that's everything with the Artemis program as of right now, boiled down to just a few 50 minutes.
No, but that's really cool. I mean, exciting that so much has been approved already to say like, yes, we're gonna go, we're gonna land, we're gonna start to like station on the moon and things like that, like within our life. I just didn't think that something like that would happen within our lifetime. But to your point, by the time we're, I don't know, let's say in our 60s, like we might have people on Mars,
yeah.
right? Like stationed on Mars,
right?
Which is awesome.
Yeah, because it's crazy to think that like you said, just by Artemis 10, if that gets approved, like we'll be experimenting with long-term stay out in space on a different rock.
Yeah,
and that's wild. And just to see this all work and all play out is going to be very exciting over the next 10 or so years. I don't know. I'm just very excited to see it then, because like the next step, Mars.
My thing is, what I was going to say earlier was...
Oh, yeah. What was your question? Did we remember?
Yeah. And so my question was, you have NASA, right, being federally funded, all of that stuff. Then you have like SpaceX with Elon Musk. You have Bezos doing his own thing, Richard Branson getting into space, like all that shit. Why so many like why not just like combine all of your projects? And then like Musk can be like, I want to be on the next launch. You know what I mean? Like take your funding into one, make the stipulation that you want to go to fucking space. I don't give a shit. Like, but funnel your funding into one thing, and that could like expedite things even faster.
Human greed. And hubris.
It's just
those guys are assholes. Of course they're gonna want their name on their own fucking rocket because their dicks are too small and they want to
but you could say like the Bezos shuttle, part of the Artemis program, he is going out there. Like, who gives a shit?
SpaceX is already helping out with NASA's projects.
Oh really? Okay.
Because of their work with the Dragon class rockets.
Okay.
Those are being used for various things being launched into space. Yeah. Whether it's NASA or others. And I don't know if SpaceX is their rockets that can like land again. I don't know if those are being used by NASA, but I just know that like some rockets are being built by SpaceX and other companies and being used to help propel Artemis up to space.
Okay, as long as there's something.
Yeah, it's just one of those other commercial companies that are being contracted to work for NASA.
See, this is what I liked about. There's like one of the only things I liked about the 60s.
Yeah.
There was just so much like patriotism. You know what I mean? Like we're all gonna like come together to like support the nation advancing as a whole.
Right.
And it's just so, I mean, we're so divided in a lot of ways now. But what I mean is just like, which I'm sure you'll support, capitalism has kind of like infiltrated into a division of sorts. You know what I mean? Like there is no kind of unification of things. And if there is, it's very, very specific as to like what those unifying moments are. It's either like a travesty or something that like is marketed and rallied to very well,
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the last thing that the whole country got around for us was 9/11.
Yeah.
And like everyone linked arms and supported that stuff.
Right. Very well said, Devin.
Really censored myself. And I just don't think anyone cares about space that much. And I'm hoping that with these Artemis missions, it will kind of draw. I mean, sending someone to the moon, we haven't done in 50 years.
Yeah.
It's a wild thing to think about. And I'm hoping that through these Artemis missions, we'll be able to get that camaraderie between you, me, and Joe down the street. Of being like, hell yeah, we did it once again. Because I think there's such a, to your point, like such a sensationalist view of Bezos going up in his rocket and Musk sending people to Mars, even though we're not ready to go to Mars.
Correct.
It's like, what?
You're going to just kill people.
Right.
It's Spacegate.
And that third guy, doing
Branson.
his own, doing his
I mean,
own
but
launch.
I get it in the sense of like with him, he at least has Virgin, so like you're like in kind of the aeronautics kind of division already, like fine, like continue and expand your own program. But the other two, I'm just like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? At least SpaceX is supporting NASA in some way, but like, why isn't there a unification of support and like resources? Like, it just doesn't. It makes sense in the sense of like corporate greed and, you know, hubris, to your point, but it also doesn't make sense in a way of trying to pull people together, and then you can be the hero of you saved NASA. You know what I mean?
Pushing
like
humanity further
together. Spin it. It's all about spin these days. You know what I mean? Sorry to put a damper on the Artemis missions, but how exciting! No,
it's very exciting. I'm really excited. I teared up a little bit. I got misty eyed.
Yeah, you did
when I saw the launch the next day.
It is very cool.
Yeah, no, it's wild. It's very exciting, and I'm looking forward to human progression to the moon.
We're gonna stay up for the next one.
Yeah,
it'll be fun.
It'll be manned. It's gonna be amazing.
That'll be really cool. All right. Well, thank you for telling us.
You're welcome.
This will at least get other people, I think, energized about it, and like
I hope.
And to your point, like I feel like maybe last year we kind of heard about it, but maybe this will like, you know, spread the word. You know? Yeah, I like it. All right, well, thanks, Devin. Tell the people where they can find us.
You can follow us on all of the socials under one username nowadays. At WDYK_podcast. So you can do that at YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. That was the last one that I needed.
Yeah, he loves social media, folks. Jesus.
Just thinking about space. Follow us, like us, share with your friends. Tell us your space stories.
Yeah, although so many people have been up there. All right, thanks, Devin.
Thank you.
Talk to you later. Bye.